And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roger, planet.
Water towers fly! Yes!
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off. It's orange!
Orange 25! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage.
Put that in the big bag, Eagle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
If the methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You read? We don't need any more of these.
Good evening. You are taking a live look right now at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida, where SpaceX is once again trying to launch the Nusantara Lima mission. I am Sawyer Rosenstein. I will be your host for today's attempt, which you may notice we went live at the T-minus 1 hour mark on the dot. And at 59 minutes and 59 seconds, the T0 was updated. So that is why it now says 1 hour, 27 minutes in the top left on the corner there, just. We'll be taking you through, hopefully, an attempt tonight. Joining me again is Alex. Welcome back, Alex.
Yeah, we're back here on the saddle, I guess, trying to see if the weather clears this time around and we get a launch tonight. But yeah, new T0, 9:17 p.m. Eastern. We'll see if they go through today.
Exactly, and currently bagging up the cameras as rain nears the press site is Max Evans, so hopefully we'll be hearing from Max in a little bit, but of course, protecting all of the gear right now. And Carson is the one today pushing the buttons and pulling the levers as Kevin Michael Reed decided to abandon us. I mean, what? Anyway, so Alex, can you kind of give us an update on where we're at with today's attempts here?
Yeah, so pretty much like yesterday, the weather is not cooperating. Although the big difference with yesterday is that today we can see the pad, which is an improvement. But ironically, the weather chances, the favorable weather chances and all that have gone down. So yesterday we were looking at roughly 30% at the beginning of the window to 45% at the end of the window. Today, however, as you can see there, the chances, so the Space Launch Delta 45, they do the opposite. They do probability of violating weather constraints. So you see a higher number there. That means lower chances of good weather for today's launch, which will be 15% at the beginning of the window to 30% towards the end. That's what it means. You know, they put, again, the opposite of it, because, I don't know, it's probably easier for them to do the opposite of probability of violating weather constraints, usually known as POV, and that is 85% at the beginning of the window to 70% towards the end of the window. So yeah, right now we are on the second half of that window. That window was opened at 8:01 p.m. Eastern today, but currently the T0 is at 9:17 p.m. Eastern. So that means we are a bit over halfway through the window because that window ends at 9:57. So if I'm doing my math correctly, that means we have another 40 minutes in the window.
Yep, from a 116-minute window originally, there are still 40 minutes left. But hey, as you can see there, it gets somewhat better as the window goes on, albeit from 15 to 30%. And it looks like they didn't even change anything from yesterday's with the 24-hour delay, which looks like another copy and paste, where it was also 30% favorable, improving to 45% as the attempt goes on. Although, good news, upper level winds, booster recovery weather, and solar activity all look low. So we got that going for us, which is nice.
Yep.
And again, a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NASA Space Florida NASA Space Flight. Oh, don't try that one. Try at NASA Space Flight or just at NSF, which is a lot easier to say, to tag us with your questions here. Um, so we only got to go into this briefly during yesterday's attempt, but Alex, what exactly is the payload on board? What is Nusantara Lima?
Yep, so Nusantara Lima is a communication satellite going to geosynchronous transfer orbit on this mission for Pasifik Satelit Nusantara. It's an Indonesian communication satellite, and it's one that it's going to join a few others. So you may have actually seen in the past Falcon 9 launching things like the Satria satellite or the what's it called, the other one, PSN-6. Sorry, there are a few other Indonesian satellites as well, but we're not from the same company. They were from another company as well. But yeah, so this one is actually a rather big one, which is why it's actually not fully going to geosynchronous. It's what we call usually subsynchronous transfer orbit, because usually a typical launch to geosynchronous transfer orbit, they sort of push it into an elliptical orbit, sort of like an egg-shaped orbit where the apogee, the highest point, it's close to the geostationary belt, right? But this one, because it's a bit heavier, it's going to be under that belt. So that's why it's called subsynchronous, because it's going to be under, hence the sub there under that name there. So yeah, huge communication satellite for Indonesia, about 6 metric tons. It's what it's called, high throughput satellite, because it's got these big, huge antennas. It's a big satellite with lots of different transponders and things like that. That it's going to be able to deliver high speed connectivity and like it's really high bandwidth connectivity and communications. So yeah.
Yep, and as you pointed out there was previously, what was it, PSN 6?
Yep.
This one, in case you're wondering, Nusantara Lima. Lima stands for 5. So in true rocket fashion, 6 launched before 5.
Well, but it was also renamed Nusantara 1 or Satu, I think it is the name. So it was, after the fact, it was renamed like that. It's sort of like when we cover Starship and we say, oh, they now call it Booster version 2, where it's like, but it's the same. No, but it's version 2 because they called it like that retroactively. Yeah, so they did the same with this satellite, with that satellite in particular, Nusantara 1. Then there was Nusantara 2 that was lost in a Long March launch many years ago in 2020. And then there were a few others as well, like Satria and Nusantara 3, that was also on a Falcon 9, like today. But yeah, and that was actually another one that is like very high throughput satellite. They have these, fancy words and everything, fancy acronyms, VHTS and things like that. But yeah.
Now Long March 3B actually don't, because that Long March 3B didn't work. So now Long March 5. But yeah, so that's the basics, at least, of the payload today. A lot of cool history, and again, as we pointed out, SpaceX no stranger to launching satellites for Indonesia.
Yep.
We actually have some support already coming in that I do want to make sure we hit as we continue to keep an eye on the weather. That, of course, the main factor we're watching tonight. Nick Petros becoming a Red Team member, Drone Merc becoming a PadRat member, Jim Cook becoming a PadRat member, Michael H., thank you as well, PadRat member, and Craig Fleming upgrading to Launch Director, one of the highest levels of support that we have here at NSF. Thank you so much for doing that. Again, you get access to the Discord just like Capcom. You get your name at the end of NSF Lives and the Flame Trench, and our eternal gratitude, so thank you. And Echo Deal already making fun of me, saying NASA Space Floor makes gravity planting tiles, right? Or gravity plating tiles. Nice.
Yeah, I guess you can call it like that.
Yes, but again, if you tag at NASA Space Floor, it won't necessarily work. Now, as we pointed out, the main concern is the weather at the Cape and the areas surrounding it, of which the area is currently all in a Phase 1 lightning watch. That is different from a Phase 2 lightning warning. A Phase 1 lightning watch means that there is concern for lightning in the area and to be alert. Phase 2 lightning warning means that there is imminent lightning in the area, and that requires all personnel to either go inside of a building or inside of their cars, and no one is actually allowed out. They also do not do any propellant loads of any kind during a phase 2. But again, right now, it is currently phase 1. Although the weather out at sea at least looks good, which, Alex, what's our recovery assets today?
Yeah, so today's mission, as I said, it's a very heavy satellite, right? So they're not going to be doing any return to launch site landing or anything like that. They're going to be landing offshore on the drone ship of a chauffeur of Gavitas, and that's going to be for the booster. The fairing halves for this mission will be recovered by fairing recovery vessel Doug. So there you go. We have all of the assets out there. Of course, the booster is also flight proven. It's flown quite a bit, to say the least. It's flown 22 missions already. There you can see some of the customer missions, and of course, 18 Starlink missions. I can list them if people want to. I always have the list on my own. So, but yeah, Cruise 6, O3B, Empower B, USSF 124, and Bluebird 125. Those are the customer missions. Those are usually the more interesting ones. So Nusantara Lima will join that list.
Yes, I also always keep them on tab just in case, because someone's going to ask, "Oh, 18 Starlinks, we'll name them all." It's like, my pleasure. We can go through the list there. So if anyone really wants, we can do that. Let's see here. We got to answer this one. And the answer is not just, yeah, probably, but Mechazilla asking, can they launch in the rain? They're saying B15-2 answered my question. I mean, can they launch in like a heavy rain? Alex, you want to take that one?
Probably not a heavy rain. Rain per se is not bad. It's the clouds that come with that rain, right? Rain that is thin, usually it's caused, like any rain in particular, usually it's caused by thick clouds, right? And thick clouds can trigger lightning and everything as the rocket flies through them. But very rarely you can find maybe a thin cloud that does have some rain, and then the rocket can fly through it and it wouldn't be a problem. It just so happens that, it's a very rare condition, right? But it doesn't mean that Falcon 9 has not flown in those conditions. I remember, for example, the first flight from 39A, CRS-10, Falcon 9 flew through a cloud right off the pad, and it was raining. That cloud actually had rain on it, and it just flew through, and it did well. I mean, it even landed the booster back on LC1, right? Like it just worked. But it was not the kind of bad clouds, the thick clouds that really create those, and also the ones that extend very high up are also very bad for the triggering of lightning and whatnot. So yeah, in certain very specific conditions, they can launch in the rain. Likely not on a heavy rain though, because then that probably means the thicker clouds, the ones that they are not able to go through during launch. But yeah.
Right, and usually if they're in a lightning watch, they're probably not going to launch either, because again, if there is a lightning watch, that likely means that there is some of that clouds that can produce that lightning in the area, and that would be a launch commit criteria violation. Here's actually a really interesting question. I don't think we've ever been asked this one before, and I love it. Nate asking, how do they recover the fairings in the dark? Are there like flashing lights on them? Is there a homing beacon? How do they get them in the dark?
Yeah, they have beacons on them, and they gotten so good at this that normally they're just able to stay floating in the water for a little bit, because it's one boat for two fairing halves, and unless you have the two fairing halves coming together very 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 like close to each other, you can imagine that in the time that it takes to scoop one, the other one needs to stay afloat for a long time, right? Long-ish, I mean, a few hours. So just that alone, for example, can help, because maybe you can locate one. Maybe you send. They have speedboats, for example, on both Doug and Bob, and so those ferry recovery vessels, they can send out the speedboat to maybe find the other one. We really don't know. This is me speculating right now, but we have seen those speedboats, and they have a couple of them on each of the recovery vessels. So I'm guessing the way that they do it is while they're picking up one, they're probably going out and finding the other one, and each have beacons and things like that. They are pretty much like a spacecraft of their own. We usually talk about this, right? They have their own thrusters to be able to reorient themselves for reentry, being able to have the parachute systems and everything to be able to come down. I imagine they probably also have a beacon. I'm not sure if they have lights on them. They probably do, but I'm not so sure. Maybe they have some kind of light that sort of lights up when it hits the water or something like that. I have no idea. That's totally guessing in this sense. But yeah, I can imagine that they can just go and pick up one, and then they can go out while they're picking up that one with the speedboats and whatever, take care of the other as they are, because again, it's two fairing halves for one boat, so the other one will be waiting for a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. It's what again though. That's a unique question because obviously you see them more in the daylight. You can typically see a parachute floating. That's a good question. I like that one. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good thought question from Mechazilla. I know Max is busy working on securing the cameras, though this is also a good Max question. But I'll throw it to you first, Alex, then I'll give my answer. They're asking, what launch from the Cape this year are you guys most excited about? So from now through December 31st of this year, is there any launch on the manifest that you're like, ooh, I really can't wait for blank?
Hmm. There's not really. I mean, there's New Glen's second flight. I really want to see it again. There's the possibility we might get a Vulcan with all 6 solar rocket boosters. For Falcon 9, there's probably gonna be lots of Starlinks. Maybe some of them will get some jellyfish and whatnot. But in terms of customer missions, there's not even any crew missions that we know of. No cargo missions from Dragon either, other than the one that just launched last month. So yeah, there are not a lot of things out there for the remainder of the year. Now you asked me for next year. You've got Artemis 2. You've got potentially maybe Starship. We'll cross our fingers for that. You've got potentially also Stoke with Nova. You've got Relativity, maybe Terranar if you stretch that, right? Falcon Heavy, we may have another one perhaps next year, right? But I do not expect any Falcon Heavies for the remainder of the year, or anything like that. But yeah, there might be some really exciting missions next year. Unfortunately, for the remainder of this year, the only thing that I can think of is again New Glen's second flight, and maybe to see a Vulcan with all 6 solar rocket boosters, because that's gonna be really cool.
Not Spainsat, huh?
No, because I'm suspecting that that's gonna be an expended booster. So yeah,
But that's
not
why
really.
those are the unique ones with the expended one to see which old booster they're gonna say farewell to.
I'm guessing it's probably gonna be B1076 because it's not launched in a while. So yeah.
Griffin mission. That's probably gonna be next year, right? The Griffin lander.
Yeah, that one is most likely going next year. Mostly because we haven't heard anything from Astrobotic on that lander in a long while. And you know what happens with these payloads? They take a long time. It's the first of the Griffin landers, right? This bigger lander, supposed to the other one. What was the other one? It was the one that launched on Vulcan's first flight. I completely forgot. I had it in my brain, but I forgot.
On cert one.
Yeah, on Cert 1.
I'm trying to remember the payloads on that one. Oh, I'm drawing a
It
blank.
was Astrobotic's first lander. Hang on, maybe chat
Yeah.
can help us. But yeah, so anyways, just summarizing it, probably Vulcan and New Glen's, few flights. But yeah.
I mean, yeah, it'll be great to see Vulcan fly again because there's still Kuiper missions. There's a GPS mission that they're scheduled to launch. So, I mean, yeah, I'm excited for more Vulcan. I actually kind of want a daytime Vulcan because we've had 2 night launches. We've had one at dawn, but we haven't had
Oh,
one middle of the day one.
Peregrine.
Yes. Thank you. Oh my
There you
gosh,
go.
that hurt.
The peregrine lander. There
Yeah,
we go. I had it in my brain, but the word just wouldn't come out. It's just like that sometimes.
that's all right. That happened to me on Shuttle Sunday the other day. It's fine. But yeah,
We
that's
get
a good
old.
question. Again, it's hard because we're getting towards the end of the year now. There's only like 3 months left. Although for SpaceX, that's still what, another 50, 60 launches at this rate. Although that's both costs.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, from the Cape, it's probably going to be more closer to like maybe 30 more launches. But yeah, still a lot of launches. I mean, 30 launches. Wow.
Carson in the back channel saying, insert next 3 a.m. Starlink mission. You know, those late night Starlinks do be hitting different.
They do.
Uh, Rocket Lab's big rocket. Yeah, Neutron's going to be out of Wallops Island, Virginia. And the question did specifically ask for the Cape. So, I mean, yeah, if you go beyond the
Yep.
Cape, it's different. But Neutron will be awesome to see.
Oh yeah, if you go beyond the Cape, there's a bunch of other launchers as well, and like rockets and whatnot that are gonna be really interesting next year.
Oh, yeah, especially as we get to next year. Let's see. Gord from Ort asking, will Playa Linda Beach be open for Sunday CRS launch? In the past, they have been, but a lot of it also depends on the weather. If the winds are blowing primarily from a certain way and things like that, there may be restrictions. But I have seen launches from 39A from there, although again, that will also be from Pad 40 for the upcoming CRS mission. So check the Park Service website. They will usually have the updated hours, especially for those launches. And if anybody's looking for any particular place to watch a launch, you can always check out the How to View a Rocket Launch video right here on the channel. And yeah, Alex, that's going to be launching from the same pad that we have on the screen here right now from Slick 40. Is there extra turnaround time or anything needed for the CRS missions, given that they have to get those, vertical, and then there's the late load? Does that change anything?
Well, it's also a Cygnus launch, and as you mentioned, there's late load, right? For Falcon 9, it's a bit different than what they do with Antares. On Antares, they had the tip of the fairing sort of pop off, and then they were able to go in and do all the things. For Falcon 9, it's a bit different because they need to do it still horizontal, but there's no way to pop off the tip of the fairing. So instead, they have like a hatch. And for this Cygnus, it's actually longer. So it's going to be a different way of getting into the Cygnus. They have to set up like stairs and scaffolding and everything to get in. And then they also have to bring in the what's it called? There's like a truck that has its own sort of connection to the fairing and everything. But yeah, and so that's essentially one of the things that they need to prepare over the following 4 days. I mean, it's 4 days and 20 hours after this launch if things hold to the T0.
Yeah, that's the big if. They used to do that with Falcon 9 and the early Dragon 1s, where they would have to lay the rocket horizontal, have this truck that would drive up, and then do the quote-unquote late load, which is typically perishables, food, and live animals would be loaded in. Although for SpaceX's own, now they have the crew access arm, which they can just swing around and use that to load in payloads as well for their own. But as pointed out, this was a Cygnus resupply vehicle that is coming up Sunday. For now, we are still an hour, 5 minutes away here, and as we continue to watch the weather at this point, things continue to look a bit on the questionable side. So what we're going to do is we are going to step away for a short commentary break. We'll be back when they hopefully give the go for propellant load, which is usually about T-minus 40 minutes. So we're keeping an eye on the weather, keep an eye on that clock in the top left. We'll continue to update it as things change, and we'll be back with you shortly. Welcome back, everybody. Surprise if anybody had this open in another tab and forgot it wasn't just tunes, as we take a live look again at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station in Florida. Up to this point, weather has been a concern as SpaceX has been pushing the clock backwards for this mission, but as of now, we have reached the T-minus 40-minute mark. This is about when SpaceX will begin the go, no-go poll for propellant load. That is not something that we can hear, but that is something that they will be doing in the background up to this point. So, Alex, where are we at on the countdown right now for this Nusantara Lima mission?
Well, if everything is still good to go, we should have propellant load in 4 minutes. So that's when they start liquid oxygen load on the first stage, and RP1, that kerosene fuel that Falcon 9 uses, that will be loaded on both stages, both the first and second stages, at the T-minus 35-minute mark. Now, of course, in the meantime, a lot of things will be happening, right? As we can see there on the timeline, one of the things that they're going to be doing is, of course, doing that poll for propellant load and hopefully getting that go for that, right? Making sure that everything is good to go. I don't know how weather it is. It's one of those things that we are sort of, as a watch item today. They moved the T0 bit since we started the stream. So now they're targeting 9:37 p.m. Eastern. That's why we sort of delayed a little bit more this comeback, I guess, for commentary. But yeah, that's where we are right now, just waiting for that propellant load to start. Once that starts, they are, either they are going for that T0 or they are not going for that T0. But if they were not to load propellant in 3 minutes, they can still move the T0 up until 9:57, which is the end of the window. So they still have 20 more minutes of leeway if they want to wait a little bit more. But if they see that the weather is good, they may try for this one. So we'll see what happens.
Speaking of the weather, I believe we now have Max out in the field, not trying to bag cameras up quickly. Max, how's the weather looking out there right now?
Hello. Yeah, yesterday when it S-worded, I'm not actually going to say it at risk for causing more issues tonight. When that happened last night, we were all of similar feeling that there was somewhat of a chance tonight, considering how quickly the weather here in Florida can change. And then the forecast from the 45th Weather Squadron dropped, and it unfortunately got worse. Whereas yesterday it began with only a 30% chance of favorable weather and 45 at the end of the window. Today it's only 15 going up to 30 at the end, which is where we are about now. So holding at about 30% probability of favorable weather or 70% chance of violation in the primary concerns of the cumulus cloud rule, the anvil cloud rule, and the surface electric fields are exactly the same as they were yesterday. So weather-wise, not looking great, but you know how quickly the weather can change here in Florida, as I've said earlier, and they may have found a window. So we are at the point now, we are at the point where, or past the point where they would have given the go or no go to proceed with prop load, which would commence at T-minus 35 minutes. So fingers crossed, all is proceeding as planned.
Yeah, so far you can see in the top left there, the clock continues to count as it does on the SpaceX page. So looks like they're going to see if they can sneak an attempt in here and try and find a gap within the weather. Also, I should point out, sneaking in the gap there, we had Angela Ward becoming a PadRat member while we were going through all of that. So thank you, Angela, very much for that as well. I see a lot of people are asking for the playlist. I personally don't have it, so I'm not totally sure. But what I am sure of is that we have the Nusantara Lima satellite on top of this Falcon 9 rocket here at Space Launch Complex 40. We went over it briefly the other night, and Alex went over it before the break, but for those who kind of missed, this is a high-throughput communication satellite for Indonesia that is part of a network that they kind of already have going, Alex.
Yeah, they have already launched a few of these satellites before. Not the same type, but sort of the same constellation, as you said, the same group of satellites, as they call them. So this will be also known as Nusantara 5, because Lima is apparently 5, right? and so it's sort of the fifth in the constellation, with Nusantara 1 also having been known as PSN-6 that was launched in 2019, also on a Falcon 9. Then they had the Nusantara 2 on a Long March 3B, which unfortunately failed during launch, so that satellite was not able to be put in orbit. And then Nusantara 3, also known as Satria, was launched just 2 years ago on a Falcon 9. They learned about it and they knew to not launch on a Long March 3B or anything like that. So they launched it again on a Falcon 9. But yeah, Nusantara 5, part of that sort of series of satellites, high throughput satellites, geostationary communications satellites. One of the interesting things, I guess, from this satellite in particular, which I didn't mention on the previous times because I was sort of hoping to get a little bit deeper into the countdown before saying more information and all that. This satellite in particular was actually built originally for another complete different purpose and for another complete, still communication satellite, but a different company, different, even different country and things like that. So yeah, it was originally supposed to be the GSAT satellite, and unfortunately the company dropped. They no longer wanted to have that satellite, and so Boeing was left with this satellite because the manufacturer for this is Boeing, and they were like, you know what? Let's find another country or company that might want to launch their own satellite, high throughput satellite, and Pasifik Satelit Nusantara came up, and they were like, yeah, let's launch it, and it's gonna be Nusantara 5, Nusantara Lima. So yeah, there you go.
Something Boeing launching from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. What could possibly go? I won't go there.
I mean, yeah, there's a few other payloads that they have launched on Falcon 9 that have failed after launch, but yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
not a
sad.
Long March, like you said, but yeah, it is a Boeing bus for this particular vehicle for Nusantara here.
Exactly. The satellite was built by Boeing. Yep.
So at this point, we should be getting near where we would see frost forming on the vehicle. It's usually about 32.5 minutes when we would start seeing indication of frost building up. Is that frost that I'm seeing there?
I
It
think
kind
that's
of looks like
condensation.
it. Yeah, definitely
Yeah.
vapor there on the left-hand side.
There we go. So fueling is underway, which
Oh.
means that they are going to actually go for the launch attempt tonight at 9:17 p.m. Eastern Time. So we're going to see
And
what they can do here.
And we got confirmation from SpaceX that indeed Propellant load is underway for today's Falcon 9 launch of the Nusantara Lima mission, and teams are continuing to monitor the weather, which is currently 40% favorable for liftoff. So the weather chances have improved, but still a watch item, of course. So we'll see what will happen. But at least they've committed to this T0. They are now in Propellant load. So that means we either see a launch at 9:37 p.m. Eastern, or we'll have to go tomorrow. There's the tweet, also with a picture of the satellite as well.
Ooh, there it is. Yes, that is Nusantara Lima. That is a big satellite, and it's a heavy one. What is it? How many tons was this one?
Yeah, about 6 metric tons. We don't know exactly, but we think it's around that, just based on the bus, like the satellite bus that it was built on, and things like that. Yeah, and also the type of satellite that it is. There are a few things about it that sort of make us think that it's about six metric tons, give it or take. But yeah.
So I guess then, Max, to go along with the question somebody asked, could we see a stubby nozzle on this one then?
I don't think so. Considering the payload's weight and it heading off directly east to a geostationary transfer orbit, that requires quite a bit of performance out of the upper stage. So it looks like we are probably going to see a full-size nozzle on Falcon 9's upper stage today. I'd be pleasantly surprised to see a good old stubby on there. It's been a minute, but tonight I don't believe so.
I don't know if pleasantly is the word I would use. Surprised, yes.
Hey.
Pleasantly,
Easy.
Sorry, I had to. But yeah, also, this mission is not an RTLS one. This is a downrange landing mission as well. And this one is actually going due east. It's not very often we see the Falcon 9s going due east between the Starlinks and all the ISS launches recently that have been going northeasterly. So, Alex, can you kind of go over the downrange assets for us here of what we have for this particular flight?
Yeah, this launch is going to be heading, as you said, straight east. The first stage will be doing its usual 2.5-minute power ascent. It'll separate from the second stage, and then it will do its reentry and landing burns, sort of landing on a chauffeur of gravitas downrange. That will be its 23rd landing for this booster. Quite an interesting life. We can see there some of the both the launch, landing, and also the orbit burn for the second stage hazard areas. So the second stage, in the meantime, it's gonna continue with its roughly 6-minute long burn to get into a preliminary parking orbit. The fairings will separate us as well during the first minute of that burn. They're gonna be splashing down off the coast of Florida, bit further downrange than the booster is going to be landing, and those are going to be recovered by the fairing recovery vessel Tug. Now, the second stage will do another burn, roughly 25 to 30 minutes after launch, and it's going to put the satellite into what we usually name, the geosynchronous transfer orbit, because it's going to be this sort of oval shape orbit with the apogee close to, but probably not even reaching geostationary orbit. The satellite will do the work of getting to that orbit, that geostationary Earth orbit. The second stage, after the satellite deploys, which will be shortly after that second burn, the second stage will probably do another maneuver or burn. We don't know exactly how they do it, but they're going to be sort of positioning for another maneuver to be able to re-enter, as you can see there, south of Mexico in the Pacific Ocean. So that's the profile for today's mission. And of course, we hope to see that in less than 28 minutes from now.
That is what we're hoping for, and we will look for that. And again, it's so bizarre seeing the deorbit right there off of Mexico. Normally it's used to, somewhere off the coast of South Africa or Australia. It's a bizarre one. At least it feels like a bizarre one.
Yeah, it's coming from high above as well, because it's going out to sort of, like maybe 18-20,000 kilometers out probably for this one, for the apogee. And then it's coming back down. So it's going to be quite the re-entry down there. But yeah, that's a new thing as well that they've been doing lately for these GTO missions, where they've been able to reserve a little bit of propellant to be able to do a deorbit burn and being able to target a re-entry, which until recently that was not the case. Missions like this will just leave the second stage in that same orbit as the payload, and eventually, because the perigee, the lowest point in the atmosphere, in the orbit, will be close to the atmosphere, right? That will mean periodically it will get sort of through this atmospheric drag, and so the orbit eventually will come back down, but it will be years, sometimes even more than a decade. There's second stages from GTO flights from like 2015, 2016 that are still up there by Falcon 9, and they are still up there and probably will not come back down for a few more years, if not another decade or so. So yeah, really nice that they're doing this right now, that they have enough performance to be able to do it, because again, it brings them back within less than a day, right? Compared to years, maybe decades, right? That's not great when you're doing so many of these launches. So that's great.
And that's also the difference between the GTO and GEO. For those that go direct to geostationary orbit, those typically just go into what's known as a graveyard orbit, where they kind of just go into an area out of the way where all of the burnt out upper stages go to live out the rest of their life in a farm upstate. Whereas for these geostationary transfer orbits, they're still kind of low enough that you need to do something about it. So at least, now they're working on doing the deorbiting portion of it.
You can say it's a farm up orbit.
Yeah, we'll take them out to a farm up orbit. It's fine. Yeah. Instead of Old Yeller, it's gonna be Old Centaur. Anyway, John Cook is asking, Max, I'm not sure if we know exactly on this, but do they keep the keep out zone in place until both fairings are recovered to ensure they're not hit by a boat or a ship? Do we know when they clear these keep out zones?
I'm a little ashamed to say I don't actually know. It would make sense to at least maintain security around the fairings, and that is why obviously the drone recovery ship in the area tonight is going to be. Oh my goodness, I'm so embarrassed. Which one is that? Is it Bob or Doug? I think it's Doug. I could be wrong. Uh, Stand by checking. Bear with me for once.
It's
Doug.
Doug,
Okay,
you're right.
good. Yes, it is Doug. Um, I don't. I think the keep out zone. The biggest risk there is going to be anything with the vehicle in flight. So once the fairings come down, I think the keep out zones will then dissolve and open up the water for vessels to use again. But Doug is going to maintain, I'm sure, maintain a perimeter around the area and make sure that no one gets near him and causes any trouble. But I think the instant those fairings are back down in the water, I think that's when the zone would clear. But I could be wrong on that front entirely, and then that will dissolve when stage 2 has deorbited itself. I'm not quite sure, but it would make sense though when the fairings are back in the water.
Right, and typically, if you ever notice those NOTAMs are not Mars, Notice to Mariners, Notice to Airmen, formerly Air Missions, those will have a timeline on them that usually goes through the window. There are times where they can cancel it early, but otherwise they just keep that up and say, hey, here's the time where you just need to not fly into this. So it's possible that they just don't expire that one early and they have it timed out so that it splashes down. But again, I'm not sure the exact certainty of it. It's just one of those where if you are flying or boating, you just follow what the FAA says, basically. Here's one from Skylar asking, Alex, why is the bottom section of the booster around the landing legs pure black, but the upper section still has some white showing through? I'm guessing that's thermal related?
Well, sort of. I guess you can call it thermal related. It is related to the frost on the liquid oxygen tank because we're in flight. So it's both the frost, but also it's the reentry. So I'll explain a bit more in detail what I mean by this, which is, when it is being loaded with propellant, as you see there, it's getting frosty, right? As it flies up, some of that frost shakes off, and especially as the liquid oxygen gets drained, it sort of also goes down that frost, right? But it stays a little bit even after stage separation. Then when it goes through reentry, they light up the engines, and then those engines sort of put up soot on the booster, right? And deposit all of that soot in there. And that's why we see the booster sooty. But the whole reason why the bottom is darker than the top is that the RP1 tank does not get frosty. And just because of that, it's a lot easier for the suit to stick to the RP1 tank than to the liquid oxygen tank. So that's why you see that the bottom of the booster, which is the RP1 tank, that fuel that Falcon 9 uses to power the Merlin engines, it's not cryogenic. It doesn't create any frost, and so that means it's a lot easier for the suit to stick to that tank. Whereas on the liquid oxygen tank, you have the frost on it, which still survives even after the flight and after you've drained most of it and everything during ascent and all that. It's still there's a good amount of frost on the booster still stick to the walls, and so because of that, the suit has a harder time to get stuck to those walls, and that's why the bottom is darker than the top tank on Falcon 9s. But yeah, that's basically the whole deal with that.
So is it black suit or black tie?
That's a good one.
Thank you. Yeah.
Maybe it's a white cape soon.
Honestly, what's coming up in hopefully about 20 seconds could, I guess, qualify as a temporary tie or scarf, maybe.
Oh, yes, because we have Falcon 9 wearing a suit. We have it getting suit as it flies, maybe putting on a tie, and now we will get the cape of good vent as we come up with the T minus 20-minute, 20-second mark. And here it is, right on time. Max, can you talk about the LOX chill down vent?
Absolutely, and pardon the camera shake, everybody. That camera is still bagged as there is some weather still in the area. So what we are seeing right now is some condensation and vapor leaving the transporter erector as SpaceX begins to thermally condition the propellant lines in the transporter erector for stage 2 liquid oxygen loading, because you don't want to be flowing any cryogenic fluids or anything of the sort of that temperature through plumbing or any material that is not at or near the same temperature, because that could cause damage and a whole bunch of other issues to the surrounding infrastructure. So, yes, and what we are seeing now is a result of the chill down as they begin to throw or flow some LOX into the line, and that vapor is pretty much falling straight to the ground. So while there may be a little bit of a breeze here at the press site, that venting is pretty much heading almost straight to the ground. So weather at the pad must be pretty stable and stagnant, and that is what we want to see, because it has not been that for a majority of the afternoon and evening here. So this will wrap up at about T-minus 16 and a half minutes. And once that happens, that is our visual indicator that they have begun stage 2 liquid oxygen load. So overall, this is a sign that things are progressing in the right direction.
That is what we like to see. So again, keeping an eye on the weather is the big thing. SpaceX posting on X earlier that it is currently at 40% favorable, which, considering the original forecast was only 15, improving to 30% favorable as the window went on, 40 is a step up. And I think it's safe to say all of us here have seen launches that were at 40% and actually did go. You can see there, Phase 1 lightning watch remains in effect, but that is different from a lightning warning, as the Phase 2 lightning warning basically means everyone has to get indoors, there's lightning super close. The watch just means the conditions could be right for it to happen. But yeah, I can think of one famous launch that was only 40% favorable. Alex, do you remember which one that was in 2020?
40% favorable in
It was
2020?
40%, it was 40% favorable on its second attempt, and it ended up going.
Oh, demo 2?
Yep.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I
was
still
that was
remember that
quite a
vividly.
quite a launch.
Oh yeah, I was a little bit downrange, so I got a lot of clouds because of that terrible weather where I was for that launch day. But yeah, demo 2 only had 40% favorable. Also, ironically, STS-135 was also 45% favorable on launch day. And having talked to some of the controllers that day, they honestly were saying that if it wasn't the last space shuttle mission, they probably would have delayed it, but it's on that borderline. So they decided to go for we have 134 flights of experience under us, let's go for it. And obviously things went fine. So about 17 minutes to go now. And again, a reminder, if you have questions, you can tag us at NSF or at NASA Spaceflight. Just not NASA Space Floor, as I was saying earlier. Sorry, no tiling. Let's see here. Question was, we were talking a little bit about this earlier while we were off the air. And I just want your opinion on this one, because we're hoping that this launch goes today. But then, of course, we also have the Cygnus resupply vehicle on 23, and that's set to launch this coming Sunday. Max, what do you think in terms of range priority? Worst comes to worst, that the 40% wins and the 60% loses, or the 60% wins and the 40% loses. What do you think takes range priority? Because again, there's also that late load payload that they have to contend with.
I mean, there are a lot of variables in that, depending on either the contracts written with the customer or tonight's client in SpaceX, and what SpaceX has on agreement with the range and also NASA. Um, if this delays too much and begins to eat into the prep time for NG-23 this coming Sunday, I would I think I'd be more confident to say that they might stand down for this mission for a period of time to get NG-23 off the ground, because NASA may have range priority, and they normally do, mostly from differing pads if two launches may conflict on the same day. We don't normally see them have to swap rockets and swap payloads if a certain or a certain mission delays too much and eats into into the NASA mission timeline. Don't know the specifics as I've said before, but I imagine if this pushes maybe another day or two, they might have to stand down for maybe a week or so to try and get NG-23 off the ground before they can proceed and try again with this one. But I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully we won't have to find out. Hopefully we can get Falcon 9 off the ground tonight and make sure all is good to go. But we'll have to wait and see.
Exactly. And yeah, ISS missions typically take priority because humans. Usually getting supplies to humans is apparently more important.
Yep.
But yeah, in the meantime, let's hope that doesn't happen. In about 15 minutes, hopefully, we will actually see this thing lift off. But in the meantime, I do want to thank some people for some support here. Echo Deal coming in with a little ZZ Top play on words. White Frost, Black Soot. Black Soot. I don't need a reason why. They come running just as fast as they can. Because everybody crazy about a sharp-dressed booster. But clever. I'll give you that. Very clever. That is really nice. And then Man on Mars saying, what do y'all think about the Neutron pad opening? Neutron more of a suit and tie situation, or perhaps a frozen banana? Well, first off, there's always money in the banana stand. But, I mean, there was a cool opening at least, except for the people that were there and got soaking wet. We talked a little bit about that on the Flame Trench, but I mean, it'll be exciting to see Neutron actually fly out of Virginia, and that will be cool from Wallops Island. So thank you all for the support. Another way to support us, if you don't want to just do the super chats like that, and where you get something even more in return, is from the shop at shop.nasaspaceflight.com, where right now we still have all of the amazing items from Flight 10 of Starship, especially as we're seeing all the testing coming up now already for Flight 11 with the booster and things getting ready for the ship static fire. Now's the time to get all of your Starship goodies and keep the hype going for another launch, hopefully soon. We got even new prints coming in, as we see this one here, I believe from D, right down the middle of the road with booster 15-2, I think this one was. Thankfully, there's a description on all of them that explains exactly what each one is, who took the shot, and when it was taken, like this one by some guy named Max Evans? Not quite sure, but yeah, they're ship 37 for scale. Those are available as both metal prints and posters. And if you do get a print, part of that does go to support the photographer who took it. And that's at shop.nasaspaceflight.com. Max, I think we're going to have to let you off a little bit earlier than usual today, because I know we can see from those close-up shots it's a little windy out there. So we'll let you get all of that ready to go early.
Indeed, have to make sure everything is protected from the rain, but also get ready for launch in the event that it does happen in just under 12 minutes from now. So thank you very much, everybody, and I will hopefully see y'all on the other side.
Yep, and set fire to the rain, hopefully, with the engines. Too many song references tonight. Anyway, as we get down to 11 and a half minutes to go, Alex, we are seeing, what number launches it this year for SpaceX? This is the 113th Falcon 9, 117th total?
Yeah, it's quite a lot, right? It's just the 5th launch of the month for SpaceX, and it's just September 9th, right? September 10th for a lot of people out there, I guess. But yeah, it's quite a lot. Then you can see even from Earth, it's the 209th orbital launch of the year, unless there's been any launch that I'm not that I'm not aware of lately. But yeah, I mean, so many launches, and as you can see there, you remember when Falcon 9 had a failure during launch last year in July? That was 177 launches ago. That's how far back it was. But yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be 4 or 5 years ago, not last year. But,
Yeah.
there you go. The 529th orbital attempt, 277th of SpaceX's from this pad, which remains the busiest launch pad in the world right now, Slick 40. And in terms of landing attempts, they just recently hit 500 successful landings, if I recall.
Yeah,
And
they just had 500 successful landings, and one of the things as well is like they still keep that track record of record-breaking just landings in a row. 161 will be with this landing if since the last landing failure. Of course, we're not counting here, when they lose a booster because of bad weather during the turn or things like that. But it lands and stays upright. It's there. It landed well. That counts as a successful landing on my book, and this will be the 161st since then. So that's a lot of launches, lots of recoveries. I mean, there's just nothing equal out there right now.
yeah, nothing even comes close to these numbers. That is absolutely spectacular. And again, ASOG right now, shortfall of gravitas 124, hopefully of 125 by the time the night is over. We are now at 9 minutes to go. What are some of the major milestones that we still need to keep an eye on here as we're under 10 minutes away from launch?
Yeah, so with this, right now we are under 10 minutes, and so that means we are in the final stretch of that countdown. We're going to get through the end of Propellant load, with the RP1 load on the first stage wrapping up around T-minus 6 minute mark, and then liquid oxygen load at T-minus 3 minutes. The second stage will keep loading liquid oxygen until T-minus 2 minutes. The RP1 load was wrapped up before. You remember that T-minus 20 minute event? That was around the same time as they wrapped up RP1 load on the first stage. So one of the tanks is complete. The second one of those will be coming up in just a minute, in just 2 minutes from now. Then at the same time, at T-minus 7 minutes, we're gonna get engine chill. Same deal that they did with the Stromback vent earlier, where they were chilling down the lines to the second stage. This will be chilling down the pump, the cryogenic pumps on the Merlin engines for that liquid oxygen to run through them at ignition. And that allows them to, again, not have this sort of thermal shock, as it is called, so that the pump doesn't get stressed. The oxygen itself, it will boil off and things like that. So if you do it slowly, you can then liberate that, vent it out, and get rid of it properly. Another thing as well is important is it fills up the pumps as well. You empty out any cavities that might be there as well. So that's going to be very important. So that's going to happen hopefully in less than 30 seconds from now, if all continues to go well. We will also see the Stromback retract starting at T-minus 5 minutes. They're going to pressurize the tanks on the Falcon 9 for that. They're going to open the clamps at the top of the Stromback. The Stromback will retract 1.8 degrees, and hopefully we're going to get a launch in 7 minutes and 10 seconds from now. Lots of other things will happen, of course, in the last minute of the countdown. Let's see if we get there.
Hopefully we do. At least at this point, we are making it now to engine chill, which is underway per the timeline at least, getting those engines thermally conditioned for launch. We are getting that much closer, folks, to the launch of the Nusantara Lima satellite to geostationary transfer orbit. It is an Indonesian communication satellite meant as a high-throughput type of satellite, basically able to handle a whole bunch of communications going through it on different bands. It is set to launch, again, to geostationary transfer orbit before eventually placing itself in geostationary orbit. This is the 5th numbered, at least, of the Nusantara fleet. They had one that was numbered 6, but this is technically Nusantara Lima, meaning 5. 6 minutes to go. I do want to hit the support question before we get into the final nitty-gritty of the count. Man's on Mars asking, what do we think happens for All Mankind Season 5? Any crazy predictions?
I wish I knew.
Yeah.
Apple,
I know there
come on.
astronauts that consult on it. I don't know, interplanetary attempt maybe? Right?
That would be cool.
We've seen Mars storylines, we've seen asteroid storylines. I won't spoil anything else, but I don't know, maybe. All I know is a lot of us here at NSF do watch it and do enjoy it. We also enjoy watching Falcon 9 continue to get frosty here and getting close to finishing getting frosty. Boy, you can see the humidity in the air from all the rain that has been happening in Florida recently, especially today, as it kind of just hangs in the air around the vehicle. That is the frost from the super chilled propellants, the liquid oxygen, and the RP1. Coming up now on 5 minutes to go. As we hit the 5-minute mark, if people have clear skies, which is a big if here in Florida, where should people be looking, Alex, if they want to try and see this? I know clouds are a big issue, and in fact, I believe right now one of their main concerns at this T0 time is those anvil clouds that we're hearing, right?
Yeah, they're looking at those. That continues to be a concern for today. But they are continuing with the countdown. As we can see, they are now preparing for the Stromback retract. So we're going to see in a minute or so, less than a minute from now, the clamps at the top will open. Then the Stromback will retract about 1.8 degrees away from the rocket, leaving a bit of separation. A lot of people ask why they have to do that. The whole reason is, the transporter helps with getting the rocket out and putting it vertical, so it has those clamps there. If you keep them for liftoff, that is not a great way, right? They open very slowly. You may be able to do some kind of pre-opening way far. I don't know. It's one of those things that sort of gets them ready for liftoff. It will probably be a lot of redesign of the top for very little gain, I guess. But this is a lot easier. And another thing that sort of is benefiting from them for just retracting a little bit here is that they don't need as long of an umbilical as they would otherwise. At Vandenberg, they do the old version where they retract, I think, 20 degrees away from the rocket. And so, yeah, they have longer umbilicals, for example. And so that means you can get them more exposed to the rocket exhaust, right? And usually longer refurbishment times and whatnot. That's not great. But as you can see, it's a very tiny, very short umbilical there for the fairing, for example, that we can see at the top.
Shorter cables, less chance of getting absolutely roasted, and if they do, they're easier to change out than the super long ones.
Exactly. You got it.
Also, and those will fully retract as the strong back pulls back. They kind of almost magnetize back in. But yeah, it gives that little head start on it too as an attempt to save it, which is why they're able to launch 2 to 3 days between missions at this exact launch pad here.
Yeah, and I just heard stage 1 LUX load is complete. So just remaining with the second stage for that liquid oxygen load.
And then there's usually a good indication of that, which should be coming up in just a couple seconds. We'll get the confirmation. And then that will be followed by the vent closeout, where they will purge all of the lines, and we get sort of a repeat of the 20-minute, 20-second vent. Albeit not to chill down the lines, but to purge all of the lines of any remaining gases inside of them. We are now at 2 minutes to go. Vehicle remains frosty. Everything looks like it's continuing at this point. Of course, the concern being those anvil clouds in the area. These are clouds that typically produce lightning. The concern, of course, being if Falcon 9 flies through it, it can create its own lightning, which could strike the vehicle. Stage 2 LOX load is complete, so now on screen is a fully fueled Falcon 9 rocket with the Nusantara Lima payload on board at the top. And there is that vent that I was just mentioning. That is the gas line closeout, purging any remaining liquid oxygen, or any other propellants that might still be in there, which could ignite if Falcon 9 goes by it. So we are now coming up on the 1 minute mark, at which point we will reach a couple of major milestones in the count. They will start pressurizing those tanks to flight levels, which I promise are underneath that haze there, but that is totally normal with the the frost. And now at T-minus 1 minute, Falcon 9 will enter startup. That is when the onboard... And there we go. That is when the onboard computers take control of the count. And again, our clock is slightly ahead of theirs. That's just because of the latency from the SpaceX feed. Ours is more real time. Next up should be the go for launch, hopefully. So we come up on about 30 seconds. Waiting for that go still.
Hold.
And there we go. That is the hold, and there goes tonight's attempt.
Well, they
Yep,
gave it a try.
exactly. You never know what the weather's going to do here in Florida. But the reason that they still call hold, which is sort of a tradition, it is something that has been done in the spaceflight industry for years, and SpaceX still does it, even though it would technically be scrub, because of the way that Falcon 9 loads its propellants. They are super chilled, and as a result, once they begin loading them, if you have to hold, the way that they would dissipate and boil off would cause issues of having enough propellant. Am I explaining that right, Alex?
1 second. Yeah, so they had I was listening to the launch director. They had an attached unveiled cloud rule as the violation for today's launch conditions. So just that single one was one of the reasons why, the only reason they actually had that hold and abort. So yeah, but they have tomorrow as another attempt if they wanted to take it. That will be another sort of 116-minute window as well at 8 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, so Anvil Clouds. Have we seen any recent launches scrubbed by Anvil Clouds?
You really want to
Somehow,
rub it in, don't you?
yeah, I somehow remember something like that.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. Yes, when the weather was 90% favorable for Crew
Oh,
11.
I was
and
thinking of another rocket, but sure, that also happened.
that was also that may have been cumulus cloud rule, but still a cloud that came in at the last second and scrubbed it. Why? Which one were you thinking, Alex?
I was thinking of Starship.
That is true.
Remember? Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was Anvil Cloud, and yeah. Then we had the shirts of. I watched the entire stream, and all I got was a Starship scrub. That was the rare one. Less rare, it feels like at this point, is the. I watched the entire stream, and all I got was a Starlink scrub, which is available again in the specialty shop. There we go. You can see it. We have the link pinned. It will be pinned in the chat shortly. There we go. So it will be up on the banner. We will have the timeline for you again. It is very limited in timing. So you've got I watched the whole stream and all I got was a Falcon 9 scrub. And as you saw there, we also have the other design, which we didn't get to talk about that one yesterday. Any chance we can go back to the other one? Because I do like the sort of scrub, the poster design. It's the there it is. The eat, sleep, scrub, repeat. I love this one. It's a cool little poster that you can get. It's fun, hang on the wall, and remind yourself of it when you eat, or if you're a space like us, it's eat, don't sleep, scrub, repeat, because you stay up for all these launches, and then they scrub. But I absolutely love that design in particular. But yeah, again, the specialty scrub shop is open only for a limited time. So if you want to get it, you got to get it now, because in a couple hours, it will be gone. So, I mean, the weather tomorrow, Alex, doesn't look that much better than today. I believe as of now, the 24-hour turnaround weather was still 30% improving to, what was it, 45%?
Yeah, it was 30 to 45%. So I think if they're gonna be trying tomorrow, we're gonna be in the same situation where they're gonna be sleeping till close to the end of the window, probably finding a good slot in the weather. But yeah, we need some merch about the Florida weather. I'm just gonna say that out loud here on stream for the merch team to do something about that. I have no idea though. So don't
I
ask
know.
me for references or anything.
I know what it could be. It would be a poster where it's got the KSC skyline, kind of like we have the Starbase skyline in that one of them, and it says, "Welcome to sunny Florida," and it's just torrential downpour and rains, and the countdown clock in the corner says "scrub." That's what we need. I'm calling it out, Lindsay. I see you're working on the banner there. I see Crispy in the back. That's what we need, like a the outline of the VAB and the launch pads. Welcome to sunny Florida. Torrential downpours, clouds, lightning, and where the NASA countdown clock is, it just says scrub. That's what we need. I'm calling it now. Unless chat has any other suggestions on what we could do for that. Also, Lords of Random with the 9-month membership saying, "What's sleep?" Alex, what is sleep? I think we need an Alex answer even trying to describe it because I don't know what it is anymore.
Well, at least it's it's still nice, I guess. Although for Max, he still probably has a few more hours to get everything back and all that. But yeah, I'm here, sitting comfortably. So I'm not doing much. But yeah, local times it's still okay. European times probably not that okay, I guess.
Yeah, probably not. But Max is currently working on getting all the cameras re-bagged up and packed up and everything because, it's starting to rain there again too. So huge shout out to Max for rolling out, getting everything set up, unpacked, packed, repacked, all of that. So Max, huge shout out. Thank you. And Alex, thanks for joining me again for commentary and a little DJ session there too.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure as usual. And man, let's hope for an actual launch soon because, we need that Cygnus up on the station. And of course, more Starlinks, I guess. But yeah, there's also a NASA mission coming up from 39A, science. So let's hope we get that as well in, I think it's like a couple of weeks from now. But yeah.
Yeah, as of now, I believe that one is scheduled for the 23rd, the one you're talking about, which is the IMAP mission.
Yep.
That one will. So yeah, 39A's keeping busy, 40's keeping busy, and of course we're keeping busy here too, including our producing team. We had Carson producing, and I believe Kevin Michael Reed popping in and helping out as well. So thank you to everybody for joining. Of course, whenever this next attempt is, which as of now we will expect for about 24 hours from now, NSF.
You believe? You believe?
What?
You
I
believe?
do believe. I believe.
Uh-huh.
What's wrong with
I
believing?
believe I can stream.
I believe Falcon flies.
There
There you go.
Sorry to interrupt your
Copyright strike.
I just had to, come on and say hi.
Hi.
Chat. Hi, Sawyer.
Yeah, Chad's still asking about your, was that Carson's playlist or your playlist?
Oh, I'm DJ KMR. It's always my playlist.
Yeah, a lot of people asking they want your playlist.
One of these days, I'll make a iTunes playlist or Spotify playlist, and we'll send it out.
There you go. Maybe Memby's Spotify playlist, something. And Bideford finishing things off here tonight with a $20 super chat with the perfect word, bummer. Indeed. But I'm Sawyer Rosenstein. I've been your host for today's launch attempt. Let's do this all again sometime. What do you say? For now, let's roll the outro. Thank you, everybody.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
R68 chamber pressure looks good.
Traveling up. Roger, roger, planet.
Payload down to nominal.
Flight downside SPD off. Bring in SPD off. Off.
It's orange!
R45. Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage! What is it? Put that in the big bag, signal.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? Sure. We don't need any more of these.